So welcome again to our Foresight talk on automated horizon scanning to monitor rapidly changing systems. Just going to go through some intro before we get to the conversation. So if you are new to Zoom, just make sure that you are selecting everyone when you want to talk to everyone in the chat. And we're going to use the Q&A function for questions so that we can keep track of them. You can also upvote, I believe. I'll need to make sure that's the case, but please do use Q&A so we can keep track of those and make sure that you're talking to everyone in chat. Here's the agenda for today. We're going to just have a quick welcome, and then we're going to get into the conversation with WigDone, hosted by the amazing Tessa Finlev. And then we're going to have Q&A, audience Q&A, of course, after the conversation. And just a little bit about IFTF. So we are an independent, nonprofit, public interest organization founded in 1968. So that makes us, if I'm correct, 66 years old, or sorry, 56 years old, as far as we know, the oldest future thinking organization in the world. If you feel free to fact check me on that. We're based in Silicon Valley in Palo Alto. We actually just got a new office, so welcome to join us in Palo Alto. And our mission is to help organizations and individuals become future ready. We provide tools, research, programs, amazing trainings that turn foresight into insight that lead to transformative action. And here, speaking of our trainings, is our amazing portfolio. There's a lot there, so I'm not going to go through all of that, but if you want to learn more about all of our trainings, please go to our website, iftf.org, and you can learn about these. And then here's our schedule of upcoming trainings this year and next year. So we have Foresight Essentials, Scenario Building, we have Philanthropy, Foresight Essentials for Philanthropy. We have a quick Foresight for Beginners, which is just 90 minutes. If you want to just get it like an intro, that's with Jane McGonigal. And then we have our amazing 3 Horizons for AI and Foresight Awareness for Philanthropy. So do check those out. Just a note that our December Foresight Essentials training is filling up fast. So I think we have a few seats left. And then finally, we have IFTF Vantage, which is our partnership where you can get access to our latest research. This is for if you have an organization that you want to become future ready. And you can also get seats to our annual conference, which is coming up next month in October. We'll be in San Francisco for our conference, so you get tickets to that. So and along with all these amazing other great features for the partnership. So check that out. And here we go. Enough of all that. I want to get into the conversation. So I'm going to introduce our guest host today, Tessa Finlev. Tessa is a research affiliate with IFTF and has worked with us in various capacities since 2008. Most recently, Tessa has been Dolby Labs' first ever in-house foresight strategist and consults with a range of organizations. Her work focuses primarily on building organizational foresight capacity and finding the best ways to apply the work inside the harsh realities of organizational needs and priorities. So I'm going to give it off. Tessa, take it away. Hand it over to you.
Thanks. Thank you, Aisha. Hello, everybody. Lovely to be here. I am so excited to get to introduce WigDone to this community and have a interesting conversation about her work. So by way of introducing WigDone and getting into this conversation, I'll share how we first met. So WigDone and I, we met around 2012, I believe. I was running a series of regional scenario workshops around Sudan, and WigDone, she came to facilitate. They were being run in Arabic, and I don't speak Arabic. And since then, she just took strategic foresight, futures thinking, made it her own, and has built this really interesting career. And Wigden, your work seems to sit at the intersection of data, futures thinking, complex systems, and building digital solutions and innovative processes in order to help surface the most relevant information to get the most relevant work done. And before we get into the Horizon Scanner and that work and how what your futures journey has looked like, I'll share a quick story about my work with Wigden. And there are so many stories that it's just fantastic. But when we were working in Sudan, there are pyramids. Just like as Americans, we learn about pyramids in Egypt. They have them in Sudan too. The ancient cultures were actually they were the same. The border is a recent thing. So when we were up in northern Sudan, there were a bunch of pyramids and no one around. And we found an old, like a groundskeeper who let us into one of the pyramids. So there was a metal gate, he opened the gate, incredibly hot desert. You walk down some stairs and it's dank and cool and there's hieroglyphics. And Wigden just stands there on the stairs and starts translating the hieroglyphics and tells us a story about the woman who was buried there. And it blew my mind because that is such incredible knowledge that most of us don't realize still exists. So an interesting story about Wigden. There's a lot below the surface. And thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I thought we could get started with perhaps you sharing your journey into futures and the Horizon Scanner.
Mm-hmm. So so it started, as you were saying, in 2012. This is when we first met, and you basically trained us. I was with UNDP at the time, so we were consulting, and that was actually the very first time ever to hear about what foresight is. And we did the training, we did the regional scenarios, and I think I was obsessed since that training. So what does that mean? I started to read, and you've been always very, very kind, like, showing me that world. After that, shortly after that, I was also working. At the time I was consulting with UNDP, but I was also working in Congo. I was doing my humanitarian engineering kind of thing. It's a little bit far from any horizons because you're just trying to, doing, the humanitarian engineering of things. So saving what you can save right now, the humanitarian action of things. Afterwards, I went to Cairo. I had multiple lives, that as I was working with energy. And then I started my master's training. It was in international affairs, and my major was methodology. So that was the very first time I started to come up with a methodology for the horizon scanning. And I was doing something else. It's basically political economy, doing illicit financial flows, trying to understand these parallel markets in in the Horn of Africa, mainly Somalia. And I was like, okay, maybe we can do foresight. And then my professor at the time, for 2 years, I was researching the topic, and he was like, okay, if you can quantify that, we can definitely do it. And that was a challenge. So here comes the data analytics. How can we quantify the qualitative? And then I started with it. So it worked. It was in my thesis. It was great. And then I was in Kenya, where you are right now, but I was working also in the slums, also doing a lot of humanitarian engineering, human rights, these kind of things. And after that, it was not unless for a year later, and I returned to Sudan, I returned to UNDP, and I joined the amazing accelerator lab at UNDP, and we were mandated to innovate, basically. So I find an opportunity to do a lot of foresight. There were challenges that can be solved by doing strategic foresight. And I remember I joined in September 2019. A month later, I did the conceptualization. They said, okay, go and do it. Here's the money, just go do it. By December, I recruited my amazing team at the time. And for 4 years, I was doing this kind of experiment. I did with the team a lot of rapid control trials. So in the accelerator lab, we are mandated to experiment, do a lot of solutions development, and do this kind of exploration. What I did, the exploration role, it's basically to look at the horizons and bringing everything and trying to charter into the uncharted territories by solving problems now. So that was it.
Great. So then you were working in Sudan and you had, was that the first iteration of the Horizon Scanner or the second? You started with a global version?
Yeah, so the global version, it was experimental at the time, just to check if I can do that, not in the research setting I was doing in France, and also in Somalia. So I did that once to collect all open data and what it can tell us about the world. So I took a deep dive into Sudan, and I did one that is not global, that speaks region, but it speaks to the challenges that the country office at UNDP Sudan is trying to solve. So it was the Sudan Horizon Scanner. So that's the second one. That's where we did the partnership. We worked with the government at the time. And I will share a presentation that goes through that. And after that, I worked for a couple of months with Istanbul, UNDP Istanbul, that we're doing something innovation, but not foresight. We're doing something exciting, but also using this kind of innovative tools and for the past year, I was working with the country office in Egypt to also localize. So there were 3 versions: the global one, the Horizon Scanner, the Sudan Horizon Scanner, and there's Egypt also Horizon Scanner. For the past year, we are doing prototypes and trying to also localize that also with the accelerator lab in Egypt. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So one of the things that I just love about your journey is after you first discovered futures thinking and strategic foresight, your life took you in different patterns and ways, but you always kept it close and you kept building and building and building until you had the right experience and knowledge and skills in the right place. And then it still just keeps building. So it's lovely to hear about that journey. And I think this brings us to the Horizon Scanner itself. If you are ready to jump into your brief PowerPoint and walk everybody through the Horizon Scanner. And I believe in the PowerPoint, you have some video demos of how it looks and how it works. The current Horizon Scanner that you developed for UNDP Egypt hasn't been launched just yet. So we're not gonna be able to go into an actual live version of it to walk through it, but you have some like mock-ups of how it works in the presentation.
That's very true. And one more thing, and maybe this is just an opportunity to say also thank you, Tessa, because you have been there all the way. I remember when I was doing my thesis in Paris, I was like emailing you in the middle of the night, oh, can I do that? Can I do that? And you reviewed my thesis, and thank you so much for being in this journey. For how many
My
years
pleasure.
now? Oh, that's a lot. 10 years.
Yeah, don't think about it.
Yeah. So maybe I can share my screen right now.
Yep.
Are you able to see my screen?
We are seeing it, yes.
Super. So we start. So in this very quick presentation, I'm going to share with you what is basically automated horizon scanning, what problems does it solve. I will share with you also very quickly how does it work, how does it come together, and I will share a demo. Right? So automated horizon scanning, maybe I can, if this is better. Yeah. So automated horizon scanning is basically a methodology and a digital platform. When it comes to the methodology of it, it answers mainly 4 key concepts. So it's basically how to identify signals of change. There are multiple methodologies that are out there, but what I've been doing when it comes to designing this methodology is to come up with certain steps, certain questions to help you narrow that into the kind of field that you're doing. So it was a long development. So I took it into understanding parallel markets, to understand illicit financial flows, and also to understand very programmatic and operational kind of questions. So to understand and identify signals of change in a given context. That's the first one. The second one is actually where to look, because we do have sometimes wealth of information, or you feel like you are drowning and there are a lot of signals of change, but sometimes you also don't know where to look. And a story about that, when I was doing illicit financial flows when it comes to Somalia, so there's a lot of money laundering, there's a lot of in the world, and there's a lot of also um, data about these financial flows, but when it comes to the monetary systems that we know, but there is also a shadow economy. So where to look with these unconventional data, these unconventional sources of data? So that's the second one. The third one is basically how to make sense of what you map, how to understand if this is relevant, if it's not relevant, and how to kind of cherry pick these kind of signals that might have potential implications in the future. And the fourth thing, the methodology also helps you to quantify potential impact. So there is a lot of, in other words, quantifying the qualitative or weighing also potential into how to do that. So what kind of signals that makes a chunk of signals more significant than the other, and what does significance mean? So there is also a lot of impact assessment that goes into that. And to be able to do all that, and to be able to do that, a lot of probabilities, basically there is a lot of math behind that. You really need the computational power, you need the platform, you need to be able to make it interactive and accessible. So that's, here comes the tool, the digital platform, where it can do all that, right? And the second thing about what automated horizon scanning is, it operates in the intersection of data analytics for obvious reasons. And the second thing is also the strategic foresight, because for a lot of people, there is a huge question when it comes to, now we have the scenarios, now what, how can we operationalize that? How can we turn that into some sort of a strategy, right? And the complexity science, there's a lot of system dynamics as well. I use system dynamics a lot as a tool to understand these complex systems and to make sense of them. And the third thing, it operationalized strategic foresight again, because you really need to, if you come up with a strategy, how can we make that operational? So you really need to answer the short, medium, and long term. These are examples of the Horizon Scanner. It's a product line for nonprofit. So there is the Global Horizon Scanner, or the Horizon Scanner, which operates 100% on open data that is already in the internet. You can take it and it makes some sort of analysis, and it tells you about the region. It can tell you that kind of bird view about a certain country, about a certain region, but it works better the macroer you go. And the second product was the Sudan Horizon Scanner. So it takes a very deep dive, and I'm going to demo a couple of features that are there just to solve these kind of problems, to focus on Sudan and to try to work it out. And there's Egypt Horizon Scanner, and they all have a source code. And by the way, these are open, the license is open. You can go into my GitHub, you can take the source code, and you can see what you can do with it. So there's the Egypt Horizon Scanner. So we did the very same localization of the Sudan Horizon Scanner, but also to work into what Egypt might need or might make of that. Example of the Horizon Scanner features, these features, there's the political mapping tool. This is a feature that we developed for Sudan, for the Sudan Horizon Scanner. So it's basically, if there's a lot of math again, and there's a lot of system dynamics. The problem it was trying to solve that even before the war, 4 years before the war, there is political silos, and then we were able to identify with the methodology that people are looking at the wrong places for data. They're looking at the wrong places when it comes to that kind of struggle. So there's this political silo. So with this map, this tool, we experimented with it in Sudan, but it's again plug and go. So you take it, you plug it in whatever context you want, with the data bank that we give you a prescription for, and then it maps out the political system for you. And there's a lot of foresight into the political mapping as well. We were able to tell 2 years before the war that actually the struggle is actually between those two assets. So it was able to identify the emerging issue, make sense of the emerging issue. And one of the scenarios that we developed was actually the war. So it was an undesirable future, and that was the experiment for that. So we were looking at the slums again. We were looking at unconventional sources of data. We were mapping out. We're doing social media analysis. We're making a lot of analytics with the amount and wealth of data that was available in-house in multiple UNDP data platforms and big data, and also other sister agencies, all the other UN agencies and local NGOs. So we were doing that kind of thing. The second thing, for example, the service offering generated from its name, it was part from the Sudan Horizon Scanner and also the Egypt Horizon Scanner, which is basically we're creating some sort of service offering. It works best for mega organizations where you have data silos, and when you need to have one conversation when it comes to the organization itself, the partners, and to also see where is the win-win, what kind of gaps do you want to see, and also we merge that with emerging issues and emerging opportunities as well, to be able to provide that kind of service offering with a click of a button. And here we have a lot of AI, we have a lot of integration, and we have a lot of conversation that happens into the service offering. The project simulator is the feature that helps you think about the kind of intervention that you want to do. We have a lot of operational data. We take that, and if you want to think about a project that, okay, I have 10 million to tackle the issue of water in Eastern Sudan, for example, it takes that with all the information and algorithms that we developed and everything, and it tells you what does impact this $10 million can bring along a certain timeline. You take that into the simulator, and it tells you, it shows you, and it walks you not just the impact, it walks you through, like, let's say 27% in this particular area is going to be the operational cost. So if you are a donor, if you are someone who is trying to come up with a project document or trying to apply for a fund or whatnot, it takes all that open information, that open data, and it tells you and it takes you through it, and it shows you how the project might look like, and it also comes with a lot of recommendations, and we have a lot of AI in here as well to give you suggestions from everything that is going on through the reports, like, let's say, UNDP reports, UNICEF reports, donors' interest, what kind of local NGOs, because we really need to listen to the people who are having the problem. Sometimes people forget. So we take all that into account, and we put that into the project simulator, and to have that kind of tool does all the computational power for you. The very last one, the emerging issues mapper, it does this kind of deep listening into what's going on in the World Wide Web, and we take it and we integrate a lot of sources, and whoever is emerging issues are going into significance, and we take that and we do that kind of analysis. We map them for you. You can take them, you can go to the source, and we also do our own kind of analysis with our own algorithms and thinking and into that. So these are the examples, and those 4 features come with different names because country offices might want to name it something else. So, but these are the main, features, and there are sub features into that. So these 4 features you can find them some of them are very unique to the Sudan Horizon Scanner, like the political mapping. In Egypt, for example, they did not really need that. And some of them, most of them are also in the, in one of either one or many of the 3 versions, the Horizon Scanner, SHS, and ESS. The upcoming product that I've been working on for a year now, it's called Blue Ocean Identifier. For those of you who don't know what Blue Ocean is, it's basically the Netflix of business. What can the uncharted territories, right? So those things, those opportunities, and those opportunities that you're going to create. So it's the Blue Ocean strategy for those blue zones. So yeah, so there are four main pains this automated horizon scanning methodology and platforms alleviate. The first one, if you have a problem with response, you want your organization to be more responsive, to be more agile. The Horizon Scanner helps you in so many ways into doing that. The second one is navigating blue oceans, understanding what kind of future demands are like. It helps you with identifying those and also strategizing your way to them. So instead of competing, you are creating. And to make sure that you are getting there safe and to secure yourself a place in the future. The third one is operationalizing strategic foresight. So the big question, we have scenarios now. What are we going to do with them? How can we operationalize them? How can we reflect that in our M&E? How can we reflect that in our delivery? And how can we do that while not losing like eyes on the ball, but also delivering while doing that, right? So to do that kind of deep innovation, that disruptive innovation without letting go of everything that you are responsible to deliver at the end of the year, at the end of the 3 years or the five years. The very last one is resource optimization. It's basically what kind of, there are a lot of data, even when you think there are none. And if you have little data, how can you make the best out of them? So not just data is just an example of resources, but everything else. An example, I'll take the Sudan Horizon Scanner as an example because it was operational for 4 years and we've done a lot of experiments. Rapid control trials with the amazing portfolio teams at UNDP Sudan. So these are the impact and these are the results of the Sudan Horizon Scanner in all the experiments that we've done. 40% increase in delivery rates is attributed to the insights and the features and the usage of the SHS. Which is basically response and agility. It also helped in resource optimization. We were able to cut up to 60% of the cost of associated mainly with data collection because of the optimization. We did a lot of unconventional data gathering, and we did a lot of proxies. We developed proxies. I had an amazing team. We had an amazing a statistician, so we did a lot of proxies, and we and at the time we were working with the Central Bureau of Statistics, so we know that we are on the right track. So it helped to reduce the cost of data collection by 60%, and that is a lot in Sudan, in country like Sudan, where you have a lot of problems with data collection, permits, cost associated, all that, and that resulted in.
Since you mentioned a little bit who you were working with, there is a question about the team that you worked with to develop this. Can you talk a little bit more? You said you had a data scientist that you're working with. Who else did you work with?
Yeah, so when I started with doing this, I started recruiting the team. I was telling you 3 months into my then new job. So I started with recruiting a statistician. There was a statistician, there was a software developer, there was a data scientist, and there was futures personnel. We consulted with Ghada Kadoda, and there's also a mathematician. That was the core team, and then we grew out of proportion, not out of proportion, but we grew the team. At the end of the day, we were 33 people doing that, but we started with those 5 core roles. Yeah, I had a team with 85% women, so that was a flex.
Very nice. I'm also hoping that I want to make sure we have time to get to Q&A as well. So I'm hoping that you can also share a demo, and then we can jump into Q&A and make sure that we also get some dialogue going.
Okay. I'll then just jump right to the demo, and then we can share the presentation with everyone. If they have questions, they can get back to us. Yeah? That
sounds great. And as you're going through that, we have also 2 questions about data. So specifically, what data was used for the political mapping tool, and what were some of the unconventional data sources that you were incorporating?
Okay, right. So do you think I should respond to these questions before the
Yep,
demo
go
or
ahead.
after?
Yep, go ahead. That's all right. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. For the political mapping tool, the kind of the question was about the kind of data that we use, right?
Yep.
So for the political mapping tool, we first set up a system dynamics model. So it was a Vensim model. So we had to just do we did consultation with political experts in Sudan. So they came along, and then we just identified these kind of stocks flows, those causal loop diagrams. So we were doing that in a workshop for a month. We are trying to map out who are the actors, what do they do, how can we identify them, how the causal loops are doing. So it was basically mapping out that kind of thing. So it was a desk review, and also identifying those key figures in Sudanese politics. So that's what the first one. The second kind of the data that we looked at, it was political. It was we were using a lot of news. We are using a lot of political statements. We are using a lot of PR statements. So that's how the Horizon Scanner is taking that. So we're taking these kind of PDFs, and then we're extracting this kind of information from them. And we are also using a lot of social media analysis. So it was that are already built in-house in UNDP. They built, before I came to UNDP, they have this kind of social media analysis. They were doing Twitter. We tried to, and then the fiasco of the Cambridge Analytica and everything that happened. So we also we're taking data from these group admins. So we are having these kind of surveys, and we're doing that kind of deep listening into the social media. And the third thing, and the unconventional data in this example itself, we are doing a lot of also surveys into the slums. And that's where we were able to pick up on signals of change, like recruiting. The RSF are recruiting a lot of people from the slums, and some of them are the very same people in Darfur who are coming into, from war. So we were able to do that. And during the COVID craze, we were able also to take this kind of data, what kind of aid they were doing. They were doing like handing out some sort of airtimes in the poorest areas of Khartoum. So that's what we did. So we're taking these kind of monthly surveys, and we have our deep listener horizon scanners as people in these kind of experiments who are giving us these kind of data. The unconventional data, we were listening to music actually, because there was a different how to say that in Arabic, it's called Zenik music. These are the kind of music that are coming from the least privileged areas in Khartoum. So we were taking that, what's trending on social media, not just posts, but also music, videos, and what kind of, and we had a visual anthropologist with us in the team. This is how we were able to collect these kind of data. And we are analyzing them. So, and one story about that, at the time, there was a music, and the chantress, the singer, she was saying something like Himetina Radala at that point, and then we started to pick kind of signals. Why is she saying that? How, and we're taking that into consideration. So we were able to map. We're taking this data, and we were able to map power dynamics. Who is most popular, where, and why this distinction is happening. And that's how we were able to map out that the Sudanese armed force, and then you have the paramilitary growing in popularity and power, and they are working in two different territories. And that came into the Vensim model at the end of the day. So, and another thing, we're also deeply listening into the Friday preaches. So every Friday, people going to the mosque and what kind of things. And then we were able to see who's influencing who, by what, and why. And we did all that of class analysis, and that's how it works. I hope
Great,
that
thank
answers
you.
the question.
Yeah, it's incredible the amount of localized data and knowledge that you have to navigate to do this effectively, which is a really interesting pointer around how you do foresight in different regions. Let's jump into the demo, and we have a number of other data related questions, but I want to make sure we get to the demo and then we can dig a little deeper into how you get the data and verify it and validate it.
So this is the demo. This is for the Sudan Horizon Scanner. You can see here we have 4 main features: interventions, political simulation, programmatic simulation, emerging issues, and this is to demo the interventions, basically who's doing what where. And these are the UNDP portfolios. This is how you can filter. It shows you, let's say we want the rule of law, where are we working? And it goes down to the locality levels. Yep. And here tells you like, okay, these are the kind of projects, either them UNDP or whoever we were able to pull APIs from, to pull data from. There's also UNINFO at the time. There was no UNINFO, so we just started with whoever was on board and they would like to, yeah. So it tells you basically the areas of least interventions, the areas of most interventions, and what interventions are, where interventions are needed. Because sometimes you have areas with least interventions, but there's a very good reason why. So this is it. And it tells you everything that you really need to know. The donors, who are they, how much they are contributing. Yeah. That's it. And for the second, okay, here. Right. And another thing here, this is the Horizon Scanner. Here you can see the response now. So that's another feature. You can see the emerging issues. It puts the 5 top emerging issue of the month right here. So if you click on each one of them, it gives you a description. It gives you a percentage. That's what I mean by quantifying the qualitative. So this percentage also means something. It weighs its impact, its effect. And it also tells you if it's an opportunity or a threat. And if you, that's the beauty of the platform. So if you can see it, if you are someone who's granted access to this, you can also see it as an expert. Do you see it as an opportunity? Tell us why. Do you see it as a threat? Tell us why. And that's how we crowd also opinions, and that's how we crowd ideas and how people view a certain emerging issue. So if you go down, so if you click on
the interesting piece about the emerging issues too is this is all automated in terms of what are the top emerging issues, and that's based on the program you built. So the system takes in all the data that has been defined by your team, and then it gives this constant feed of what are the top emerging issues, and that's really critical information for people to have their fingertips on, rather than having to wade through all the information that you've had to wade through in order to build the system.
Exactly. And here you have the sources, and the description is also automated. It's auto-generated. It's vetted, and of course, and it has that you can also filter by signal, segment, language. We are operating on 2 languages right now, Arabic and English. You can also filter by SDGs. So yeah, that's it. We can go back to this one. Yeah, so just major takeaways. So the value added the automated Horizon Scanner is having, it's basically agile and risk mitigation delivery. And the second thing is the value innovation in the creation of new markets, if we are talking about business. And if we're talking about nonprofit, it can also shows you the future risks and the future opportunities that you can build yourself to shape when things come true. So yeah.
Great. So I will continue with the Q&As the questions that are coming in online, and go ahead if you haven't already entered a question, feel free to drop it in the Q&A or the chat. And as we're getting there, I also wanted to talk about within the Egypt Horizon Scanner, we saw the the emerging trends and how they're weighted in terms of which ones are the most relevant. The other interesting piece was you have an automated, I don't remember how you call it, but an automated system to help people define investments and projects that they would want to roll out. Yeah,
That's me.
maybe just describe that very briefly, because it is a two-sided program. One is scanning what's happening, and then the
Yeah.
other one is then having that information help you define how you want the interventions you want to roll out in country.
So for the nonprofit, yes, that's the programmatic simulation. So it tells you, it helps you to think about that, how to, if this intervention everyone is hyping, so does the hype really worth it? Or maybe it's something, it's a bubble that's going to burst. And that is very dangerous when it comes to, especially in the development world. Maybe the humanitarian sector is a little bit different because there is a problem you're tackling. But how do you know when it comes to development? You are working in timelines that are medium and long term. So you would want to be able to stay relevant, but you also want to be able to know, to have that kind of future-proof mentality. Donors, sometimes they are flexible, sometimes they are not. So to build that kind of planning and to build that kind of programming where you're agile, or you're responsive, but you're also working on long-term goals. So it helps, does that. So it also brings all the kind of information. It tells you maybe you really need to look at this place you are not looking. And maybe you also need to build this kind of backdoor whenever, if things shifted, maybe you can also do that without causing a lot of loss for resources that are already scarce in the world of development right now. So that's the thing that we developed, experimented with, and it helps. It also helps brings a lot more unconventional partners, because if you're bringing unconventional foresight, then unconventional partners would also come. On the other tool that I'm working on right now, it's a tool that helps you charter that kind of blue zone, and it helps you. It helps to take what you already have and make it future fit, I would say. So this is an opportunity maybe for organizations, businesses, even venture capitals. So if you want to invest in one thing, if you want to invest in the other, what are the likelihoods? And it's not just telling you, because you are creating markets, you're not just avoiding. So it tells you what goes with what to do what. So, and more often than not, it can give you these kind of insights instead of just going with luck.
Yeah, great. So there were a couple questions about, can this be used for other organizations or contexts? And you've answered that, yes. And Wigden mentioned the code is open source. It's available on your GitHub. So for those of you who want to dive into it and figure out how to adapt it, it's there. And Wigden is working on building something that's for the business context using a similar methodology. So lots more to come on that. All right, we have, yes, did you want to add something?
Yeah, for the open source code, it's you can go and you can read that. I just wanted to highlight that for the open source code, it's for the nonprofit side of things. So, but you can take it and you can use it. You only need to credit ACLAB for that, ACLAB Sudan, and you can and why it has been there, the license. Even if you are a business, you can take it, you can make it, and because it was. When we decided to go with that, and I would like to thank the senior management at UNDP, the ACLAB at UNDP, we wanted to also support small businesses to create that kind of digital public good. You can take it, you can do that with it. But when it comes to the business side of things, that's a different story. That's not open source, but I'm just sharing.
Yeah, lots of questions about whether or not you can share the link to the code. I think it must be in your portfolio, which is linked in the program details. Some questions about data. How do you validate the correctness of the information that you get? And this is something people are particularly interested in the age of fake news, generated media. How do you know what you're seeing is true and validate that?
Mhm. So two main concepts. The first one is the concept of weaving, data weaving. So it's basically to take all the kind of data that you have, and even if you have multiple different sources that are reporting different things about this very same topic, you do the triangulation. So it's a statistical concept where you do that kind of triangulation and try to come up with the closest thing to reality. And when you take it from you take it as a quantitative question, so you have that kind of margin of error. So we also the software itself, it has a built-in weight. So how you weigh the data, and sometimes, and it's very true. So if you take it only, you don't take consideration of data, and you take it only quantitatively, the loudest voices will going to screw your data into that. So that's what we do in the data bank, and in the data depository we have installed weighing. So we already vet the sources of information before introducing this data into the software, into the bank that we take from, and we have reliability matrix. So what does the data say? What are the sources? And to each organization, it's on its own. But we have in UNDP, there is a rigorous vetting process that happens into the M&E. So we take that and we make it into the reliability that whoever is using this website is thinking. So if a source of information is coming from the World Bank, for example, is going to have much more weight than something that is coming from a tabloid, but we are taking everything in. So there is a statistical model, there is a mathematical model into doing that.
And how do you define the weights? What's the process of doing that?
So defining the weights, it comes with, we take all these mental questions and we put them in a mathematical equation. For example, there are certain things, a matrix you would need to. So what is the source of information? Let's say from 1 to 9. So UNDP would say, I would trust 8 out of 9 any information that's coming from the World Bank. 9 out of 9 any information that's coming from UNDP itself. 9 out of 9 the quantitative data that comes from the government. So we take that, so the formula and the algorithm is the same, but before plugging into data, the organization itself would need to sit and they need to answer that kind of survey. So this algorithm, this way algorithm, it would work into that. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, and we have a question that's in a different vein. Someone is saying, wondering that needing a team of 33 people, you said a group of 33 people, sounds quite resource intensive. So how do you measure the cost effectiveness of the project in light of having to staff that many people? And maybe you can also then explain, what were the 33 people doing? Are they all required to run the project throughout, or it was just in the early stages of building things and they come and go?
Okay, it's true, and that's why I think we as in the world, we need to be very thankful for what the ACLab is doing, because they made sure to provide these kind of resources so we can experiment and we can make this happen. So that's out of the way. The first thing. The second thing is that the 33 people, I also came with my own way of doing things. I called it the origami structure. So the origami structure, when I was working with UNDP, I was working, I was doing 20 projects at the time. So those 33 people are working across the 22 projects. So the origami structure is basically to have 33 people working in 20 optimization again, and to origami ourselves into doing that. So the Horizon Scanner is only one project out of 20 something, right? It was maybe one of the most resource intensive, and it was a deep innovation because it enabled me to do 22 other products. 17 of them saw the light of day, I would say, because of that. So the effectiveness of that, like how did we finance that? So the country office supported that, the ACT Lab supported that, and as I was telling you, 85% are women. Many of them, they were college graduates, and we have a lot of talent in Sudan, and we don't require 6 figures to work. So that was a thing. We did have an American or two, but I mean, you know, so we did that. And the third thing is when it started to make that kind of impact, and in the development world, if you help people deliver large rates, if you help them, if you cut the cost, but you also tell them where this cost can, because that's a little bit unintuitive, because sometimes if you reduce the resources, they won't deliver as much money. So we also figured out a solution for that, and you help them bring a lot of money into these kind of projects. That's how you sustain yourself. I'm not quite sure if we can say that, but we were operating because others are operating. We were able to bring a lot of funding, and then we were able to fund ourselves, and it was non-profit. So if you bring to the office, I don't know, $7 million, we can easily sustain this amount. And there's a lot of capacity building that goes into that. So I was not just running a team, I was also, building that kind of capacity. I'm building my own sales capacity with working with those brilliant people.
Yeah, that's great. It's not always about optimization. It's also about capacity building and making use of the resources that you have. So we have time for 2 more questions. One of them is a little deeper, and then the second one is more specific about when the Blue Ocean tool will be available. There's a fair amount of interest in the Blue Ocean tool. People also want to know if and when they'll be able to see the Egypt Horizon scanner. So make sure you answer that before we wrap, but I want to give you time to answer this other question, which is more methodological. How do you convert signals into insights and then into actions? Is this done manually by the team?
Oh, that's a very good question. Thank you for that. So that's why we have the feature, and that's the features themselves. They make that kind of interaction with you. So you can make it's actually, I would say, 70% of the work and the calculation and bringing the data. It happens by the system, but 30% happens with you as a user to that platform to come up with these kind of things. So we take the signals, and that's how the features has a result at the end of the day. So if you're doing the programmatic simulation, it's taking that kind of thinking and match it with the foresights, and it matches it with the kind of signals that's happening, and it results a scenario, and it results a strategy to apply that scenario. So it gives you 3 scenarios at the time, right? But the tool itself, or the platform itself, it's basically you doing foresight with a platform that can do that kind of computation, and it keeps you in track into doing that, to keep you, so I think that's better answered when in 2 days, Tessa, we're going to share with them a prototype where everyone can use these tools and interact with it. And I'm going to put a couple of features that are in the 3 portfolios. So something that is just for Institute for the Future. So
great. So in a couple of days, the Egypt Horizon Scanner will be made available and shared so people can get in there.
Not Egypt Horizon Scanner. I would shout out to Isra. She's our software developer. She's working on that right now. So it's going to be a prototype with multiple features.
Okay.
They're all open source, but it's not Egypt Horizon Scanner, because Egypt Horizon Scanner, going to that question, maybe one day my colleague at the country office, Angie, shout out to Angie as well, maybe she can come and she can share that, because what I was doing for a year, I was supporting the country office to be fully independent into taking that forward. So the launch and everything, that's going to be, the country office in Egypt, that's their decision into how they're going to make that happen.
Great.
But
so Wigden's going to help make a prototype just for this group, and IFDF will email that out to everybody when that's available.
Exactly.
So I would love to hear you talk about the Blue Ocean tool. What's your timeline for that? And then when you're done with that, we'll pass it back to Aicha to wrap up the conversation.
Okay, so I even had the turtleneck, the Silicon Valley turtleneck for this announcement. I'm going to, yeah, so I'm going to start my own company finally. So it's, yeah, so we are going to, there's a lot of, couple of registrations that are happening here. I'm based in Stockholm, Sweden, which is also a great country for startups and everything. So once that is out of the way, myself and the company, we're going to share that. So just stay tuned. And in a nutshell, what we're going to do is that we're going to help organizations and business venture into those blue zones. Yeah, and to help them
Great.
secure their place in the future. Hopefully.
So we'll follow along. Everybody follow along with Wigdone. Find her on LinkedIn, and you'll be the first to know when it's ready. There have been a lot of comments just congratulating you on the work and the interesting use of data and artists and how effectively you've done this. So just want to make sure that you hear that. There's a lot of just respect for what you have done. So thank you so much, Wigdone, for joining us, and thank you to everyone else who's joined us. I'm going to hand it over to Aicha, who will share some information about the next Foresight talk.
Yes. Thank you so much, Wigdone and Tessa. Wow. Just I'm speechless on all the work that you did, and it looks like an amazing tool, truly horizon scanning. It's just, I can tell it took a lot of work. So congratulations on that and on your new company. That's great. We'll definitely follow you and root for you. I'm going to share just quickly before we end our upcoming Foresight Talk webinar. So we will have, let's see, hopefully you're seeing that. We have, great, thank you. Thumbs up. So I'm going to share the registration link in the chat. We're next month on October 30th. We're going to have Greg Epstein, who's a humanist chaplain at Harvard and MIT, and he's going to be talking about tech agnosticism for a better future. And it's going to be hosted by our wonderful Jane McGonigal. It's at 12 p.m. PT, 3 p.m. ET. So if you can join us, please do. It'll be similar to this style where we're going to have a conversation and then open it up to Q&A. So do check out the registration link for more details about what the talk is going to be about. And yes, so again, thank you so much, Tessa. Thank you, Wigdone. It was really amazing to hear what you are doing, and we appreciate you sharing your learnings and experience with us. And thank you everyone else for joining and sharing your amazing questions. We appreciate you being here and creating this, community learning. So thank you again, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And oh yeah, look out for a post-webinar email where we'll share, thank you so much, Wigdone, the prototype and other information. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, everyone. Bye-bye.